This show is listener supported on patreon.com/Cameron_Dare. And by writing a rating, review, or subscribing in the Apple Podcast app, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Spotify, etc., where you're probably listening right now. We can't make the show without the Patreon support, and we really appreciate it. Links to all of these are in the episode notes. You can also leave a voice message for the show through a link in the notes. This is the Cameron Adair podcast with me, Cameron Adair. This is episode 24. Today on the show is Lee Shaner. Lee makes music as intuition, and you may know him from his shows Kinda Neat and his new show, You Feel Me. We met up at my studio in Echo Park. We talked about music, Los Angeles, and podcast drama. Here's Lee.
Cool. Yeah, welcome to my studio.
Yeah.
This thing, I got rid of my first one. I mean, because they're ridiculous. Like, it's huge, and it's just a weird thing to have in your house.
Right.
And so I got rid of my first one when I moved. So then, when I came down here, I scraped up some money and bought this one from some Nickelodeon star.
No way.
Yeah, I went up to Hidden Hills and bought it from this. I don't even know his name, but he's like super famous.
Yeah. And have you guys collabed since?
No, we collabed by by sharing the same booth.
Yeah.
It was moving, and the guy's obviously like a multimillionaire. He's younger than I am. And he could tell that I was like a little down and out. So when he sold it to me, he was just like really in a good mood, and he started just handing me my cash back.
Yeah.
While I'm standing outside of his mansion, he's just handing me hundreds back.
Was it one of the was it Logan Paul? Was it one of the Paul brothers?
I don't know. Logan Paul's a YouTube guy.
But he was Nickelodeon first, I think. Or maybe he was Disney.
No, he's a Hispanic guy. I could look him up.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's a pretty tight story. I've only ever seen them online, and I just know that they're very expensive. And I'm surprised that in the heart of Echo Park, you were able to find a place big enough to set one of those up.
Yeah.
You know?
No, we scored on this place. I have to admit that.
Yeah, it's a nice spot.
Yeah, I couldn't live in an apartment building. I don't know how people do that here.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get a little local flavor in this spot with the neighbors. Like, they own that place.
Yeah.
And I think they've
been there for a long time.
Yeah, for about 3 generations.
Yeah, right. That's tight.
They're super Hispanic in Echo Park.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the neighborhood I live in has not changed for probably a good 40 years or so. So, like, the neighbors on either side have been there forever. The ones to my left side just sold their place. And so, like, now my neighborhood is on the verge of being gentrified, I think.
Where are you at?
In Eagle Rock.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, these houses that they bought, 40, 50 years ago for, like, way less than $100,000 are now all selling for, like, damn near $1 million.
Yeah.
And so the only people that are going to be able to afford them are, very upwardly mobile. So.
Yeah, that's how it is in a big city.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it comes in waves, I think. Where is it? Or not Bernal Heights, that's San Francisco, but
Boyle Heights.
Boyle Heights, thank you. Yeah,
they're
yeah.
much trying to stop the gentrification there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on that neighborhood.
It is rough. Where are you from?
San Francisco.
That's where you're born and bred?
Well, Bay Area. And then I moved to San Francisco around when I was around 20.
Yeah, for like art stuff.
Yeah.
For music stuff.
Yeah, just always wanted to live there. So.
Were you in a scene with Nick Waterhouse then when he was up there?
I remember him. Yeah. My girlfriend knew him, knows him. And Spit.
Oh yeah.
We have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah, right, okay.
Who else did you know?
Oh yeah, if you came up with Spit and all them, the instant messengers, those are your guys. Yeah,
I remember that.
So I know them. Okay.
Yeah, we were getting busy in SF around the same time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's home. LOL. It's right there on the wall.
There you go. I did not notice that. Yeah. I'm not very observant.
You're the second person to have said that once I pointed at the flag.
Yeah. It's the Where's Waldo of your room is the San Francisco flag. I'm originally from the street that you currently live on. My hometown is Fairbanks, Alaska.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go.
I knew you were from Alaska from listening to your show.
Yeah. So just outside of Fairbanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you decided to move to LA.
Well, I moved to Santa Barbara first for school and lived there for about 6 years. And then once I decided I didn't want to be like a bartender or waiter, because that's kind of all there is to do up there if you don't have a very specific skill, then I moved to Los Angeles.
Nice.
Yeah.
For music, for the big city.
Kind of. I mean, the reality was I was already coming down every weekend for music stuff anyway, and there seemed to be more job opportunities in the photo world, which is what I went to school to study for. Oh,
that's right. Okay, yeah.
And then also I was dating a girl who like moved down on a whim, and like, long story, but I was like, okay, I'll move down to LA to be back together with you because we took a little break, and yeah. And so, I moved down here for a girl. That didn't work out, but everything else did. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
What school in Santa Barbara?
It's called Brooks Institute of Photography.
Oh,
so I went to a very specific photo school. It's now shut down, no longer exists. But for a long time, it was like one of the most prestigious photo schools, and then ITT Tech bought it, and it became not as prestigious.
Huh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So they just became kind of a cattle call after a while.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I did Cal Arts. I went straight from Silicon Valley. I applied to only one college and went to Cal Arts. Got in for fine art, and then just couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't shy that many credits, and I can't do it. And I just moved to San Francisco and watched everyone graduate on Facebook.
Right.
From my apartment in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So.
What were you studying at Cal Arts?
The fine art.
Oh yeah. Do you still? What was your medium? Painting, sculpting?
I did sculpting, and I still implement it into music stuff as far as the album cover I did. And I was making, I did sculpture and took a lot of music classes too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I've always found that the visual art background helps a lot with music stuff, and I often think that like there's not a lot of difference between mixing a song per se as and like retouching a photo. Like
sure.
Sometimes I'm listening to a song and I go, oh, this needs more contrast, and really I just mean that like there's too many like random frequencies, and the bass is maybe too high and the treble's too low or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just think of it the same way I think of retouching a photo. It's really interesting.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's really similar.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's similar with sculpting. Like you probably think about like, oh, this part of the audio frequencies is missing something. I should add something there. The way you have like a lump of clay or whatever.
It's the way you'd think about conceptual art is the way same sort of set of parts of your brain where you'd think about how you'd want a recording to feel.
Well, people forget there's even a visual element of recording, because after you look at enough waves, you can start to pick out what fucking sound you're seeing.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
The S's look like little footballs.
Exactly.
It's from a technical standpoint, that's true.
You start to crack the matrix. So it is visual as well as audio.
Yeah. I took a really cool photo class, a mural class at Cal Arts, where you take 35 millimeter negatives and then blow them up and print them on up to like 6-10 foot photo paper.
Yeah.
And that was so fun.
And then paint over it or what?
No.
Or just printing that big?
Just print, just to print a mural photo that big.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things I did.
Nice.
There. Yeah, I did some photography stuff.
Sick.
Like learned how to use a darkroom from that class.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I haven't been in a dark room for ages, but yeah, I spent a good 3 years of my life like just living in a dark room. Yeah. So
it's rad.
Yeah.
And then also, not long after I moved to San Francisco, I started working at some of this recording studios up there.
Okay.
As an intern.
Yeah, right.
And then that just sort of evolved into me putting out music. So,
yeah.
Over the course of a few years, so I got some recording studio chops in the process of that too, which were much more valuable, I think, than the very specific type of insanity that comes with being a Cal Arts student.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to explain that to someone recently. I was trying to explain that to my mom recently, actually. Because look at who went there. It was like in modern culture, like John Mouse and Ariel Pink.
Oh yeah, right.
I mean, these are like sort of outsiders.
Right.
It's
Totally.
like very.
Was
so
your
there's
mom
only a few
bummed
of
that
us.
you dropped out?
I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. She says that she was,
Yeah.
but who knows?
Yeah, right.
Nobody stopped me. For a while, I was kind of pissed that nobody stopped me,
Right.
like regretting it. But
It was the opposite for me. I really wanted to drop out of art school, and my mom was like, "You've come this far. Don't quit now."
Yeah.
And I really think like if I would have quit, I probably would have stayed more involved in photography because by the time I graduated, I was like so burnt out and over it, and didn't want to deal with like the egos in the photo world type of shit. I wasn't really prepared in art school to manage the playing the role of the perfect courtesan that you need to do to like navigate through the photo world, you know? Like you really need to like pay your dues and all that stuff.
Totally.
And when you go to art school, they convince you like you've already paid all your dues, like you learned everything here. And I believed that. I was like, oh, I fucking know everything. And so it took me a long time to like humble myself after that.
schools are tricky, man.
Yeah,
School.
totally. They don't. I don't think they teach you a lot of the practical survival instincts that you need. And some people are born with that, and I certainly was not.
If I could do it again, I would do it so differently.
Mm-hmm.
I would use my time at CalArts to actually be an adult about art and like make a show and push it to the people that it should go to. I mean, because if you're going to be a fine artist, there is a pretty specific ladder you have to climb. I'm sure it's the same way with photography.
Oh,
a lot of people,
absolutely.
they'll graduate from any like recording school, say, and the degree's just not really worth anything in the real world because
Yeah.
it just doesn't work that way. The school just wanted your money.
Yeah, that's it. and realistically, with most art forms, I think if you are truly passionate enough about it, you don't need to go to school for it because you'll be smart enough to like find a mentor. You'll be smart enough to take internship. I mean, it's like this. There's no fucking tattoo college, but somehow everybody that wants to be a tattoo artist manages to like find an apprenticeship, have somebody beat the shit out of them for 6 years and go draw this same thing over and over and over and mop my floor. And maybe when you're done, you'll be good enough. And then they end up great tattoo artists. You know what I'm saying? And like, but nobody tells you that about fine art or photography. It's like, yeah, you probably just need to like be someone's bitch for a few years and learn the realities of being able to make money in that field. And then you can like kind of get Mr. Miyagi'd and like you learn everything by osmosis accidentally. Yeah. And then when you're done, you're ready, you know? So that's what I wish I would have done is just like found a mentor and been like, can I get you coffee for the next 6 years or something, you know? So.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It worked out. There's not a lot you could do with a fine art degree.
No.
So
I've never once showed anyone my degree, but I keep getting photo jobs.
Yeah, totally.
You know? So, yeah.
So I first listened to I guess it was your second podcast. It's kind of neat, right?
Yeah.
And then the first one was
Knock Steady
before
Live.
that.
Yeah, called Knock Steady Live. That was short-lived. It only was around for about a year.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that was kind of my accidental intro into podcasting. I had never even listened to any before that. So.
That must have been, what, like 2012?
2011. Yeah. And so at the time, it felt like some early adopter shit. Now I listen to podcasts that were started as far back as like 2006. So even in 2011, you were like kind of late, but still early enough to where people would be like, what is a podcast and how do I find it?
Right.
You know? So by the time that Serial broke and everybody's like, podcasting is mainstream, I was like, what? This is, you guys are like all 6 years late.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so.
I definitely, on those terms, got in late.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I started this one in part because of your show.
Oh, thanks,
and
man.
because of, well, why did you start yours?
Well, so the first one I started just because I was kind of floundering as a musician and I needed some guidance, and I found
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I found some guidance in this dude who was kind of starting this media company called Knock Steady, and they initially just hired me on because they like knew I could write and I was out of a job. I had recently become unemployed, and they're like, well, come work for us and we'll figure something out. So I started writing blogs and da-da-da-da-da. And then I just told them like, yo, I could be doing more. And I feel like, the coolest thing that you guys have ever done was this thing where you had people come in and perform live on Fridays. I'm like, why don't we start doing that and I'll host it? And it turned into this thing where we started live streaming people performing, and then in between songs, I would interview them, and then that would be live streaming on Ustream before YouTube even had a live streaming capability. And then we would release all the audio as a podcast, including the live performances. So it's kind of a very loose podcast by definition. And then we would put out the video on YouTube as well. And it started gaining traction. We had some early scores with like Mike Eagle was a big one, and that was like the first one where I was like, oh, I understand what this is now. And then we had on people like Krayshawn and Macklemore, who at the time that was like a big deal. Now you look back and go, oh, that was very 2011, but at the time it was like super cutting edge.
Yeah.
And so we had a good time with it. We had a lot of cool people on, and then that disbanded, and it got bought, and I kind of got left by the wayside. And so I went like, how can I restart this and do just the things that I enjoy doing, which was like the curation and the interviewing and the live performance part, and not have to do the shit that I didn't like, which was like, I don't enjoy live streaming because I feel like if you live stream, you have to like really edit yourself.
Yeah. And
so that's why I started Kind of Neat. It was just kind of like, all right, I have this opportunity. There's a new studio because it's Daddy Kev's studio. And he was like, yo, do you want to do something here? And I said, sure. And so, that was it. It was just me and one other expatriate from Kind of Neat named Ben. Shout out Ben.
Not from Kind of Neat.
From Knox Steady. Yeah, sorry, from Knox Steady. And I just told Ben like, yo, I'm gonna start this thing, and I think you and I together can like make it big. We just gotta like work hard at it, and it'll pay off. And then I don't know if it ever really it kind of paid off, but neither of us never like ever made a living off of it, I don't think, but it definitely became a big resume selling point for us. And everything that we've gone and done since. So
definitely.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first episode I heard was I think the Christian Clancy one.
Oh yeah. He's one of those dudes that just was like, I always wanted to talk to him because I just think he's such a fucking genius, like what he's done with multiple generations of musicians and taking them to the promised land. I mean, he just has a vision like no one else.
No, for sure. Yeah, he's definitely got, having worked with Paul Barman.
Paul Rosenberg. Yeah, Paul Rosenberg.
Of course.
Yeah.
Jewish guy.
Yeah. Shout out Paul Barman too, though. My dandy voice makes the most anti-choice granny's panties moist.
Yeah.
Have you heard Paul Barman? That's how he raps.
I think so, yeah.
That's how he raps.
I mix those names up. That name that I only know from having bought the Slim Shady LP.
Yeah.
So right there, that was a big time for music, and he's, I guess, a part of that.
Yeah, he worked with M, he worked with 50, he worked with all these guys, and then he obviously got really big working Odd Future. Like he became almost like he became like a member of Odd Future in a sense. Like people knew who he was.
No, yeah, totally.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, watching that stuff happen firsthand.
Yeah.
I've said this before on the show, but like in your lifetime, you can only watch stuff break in real time a certain amount of times. Yeah. And watching like that video come out, and then the Fallon appearance, and huge. Like everything they were doing is like Christian doing that.
Totally.
Pulling the strings somehow, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, and even if he wasn't like he was definitely helping pull the machine or pull the strings, but I think even just knowing how to guide those creative visionaries and those creative voices into the light, you know what I mean? Because those are dudes who were so kind of left of center at the time that they wouldn't have been able to make it to the mainstream had somebody who didn't have that ability to navigate the mainstream, like kind of go, oh, here's how we can really monetize this, and here's how we can like take it to the world. And now, that was almost 10 years ago when you think about it, and it seems like normal now. But at the time, living through it, you're like, holy fuck, this is changing everything. You know what I mean?
No, yeah,
the same way that watching it in 1993 with like the Wu-Tang Clan or like even Dr. Dre and Snoop, you're just like, wow, this is changing everything. Yeah. And that only happens once every decade or so, So
yeah, that's what we're always waiting for.
Yeah, totally. As a music lover, like that's all you can ask for is like watching those people like kind of reshape the world. You know, your Kurt Cobains, you know, your fucking Wu-Tangs, your Odd Futures. Like they really reshape and restructure the industry every time that happens.
It's subjective too.
Yeah, totally.
For me, the bands that do that or artists that do that are different than the ones for someone else.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
sure.
Like I would say Death Grips this century has done that for me, but a lot of people wouldn't feel that way.
Right.
Someone might say, "Oh, John Legend changed my life." So not me. So I don't know.
No, totally. And I could see like the artistry meaning something to a person and changing their life, but I wouldn't say that John Legend changed the game. You know what I'm saying? Like John Legend is a fucking fabulous singer. His first record is amazing. Snoop Dogg collaboration, I still bump it, but I fucks with him. I could see the argument for Death Grips in that I think they were early protagonists in the meme era of rap, right? And some people would be very mad at this, but here's what I will say about Death Grips. Whenever you see a Death Grips article, it's never about the music, it's about a stunt, right? And so it's always like, oh, they have a fucking dick on their album cover. Or oh, here's a video, somebody's wiping their asshole in it, right? So there's always like this shocking headline. And I would say that a whole generation of SoundCloud rappers took that and like turned it into meme rap, in a sense. And I don't know that there's a direct lineage that any of those SoundCloud dudes would be like, yeah, Death Grips was my inspiration for making this meme song. But I think there's some kind of correlation to be made between like an Old Town Road and a Death Grips thing. Because it's like this, you got these elevator pitches, right? Where it's like, here is this thing that you should watch because of this. And like, here is this country rap song that you should listen to because it's got Billy Ray Cyrus on it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like this. It's the same concept, just different world.
Huh. Wow.
Sorry.
Totally. Yeah. I could chew on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about them. I haven't been crazy with Death Grips for a while, but when that
Ex-Military is fantastic. Like Ex-Military was wonderful, and I really thought that was going to be like a game changer. And then I think something got lost where it became more about these shocking headlines than the music. I really felt that.
I don't read the headlines in music or pretty much in anything.
Right.
I'm the same way about a lot of things. But I don't know, No Love Deep Web was definitely, I saw them in San Francisco at Slim's when that came out, and it's hands down the best show I've ever been to. I thought I was going to die at one point. The MC Rod kicked a guy in front of me in the face, and he like passed out.
Yeah.
And then the bouncer dragged the guy away. I could barely breathe because people were packed so much, and I was just drenched in sweat.
Wow.
And it was a religious experience.
That's tight. So that first year that they dropped, that was 2011. That was a very formative year in my life when the Knock Steady shit was going on.
Yeah,
and so they played Low End Theory, right? And that was their first. I think that was their first like ever really big show. I guess I'm sure they had played shows before, but this was the one where like people were paying attention because it was kind of like their debut after the big single. And so I went there and shot photos of it, and they ended up in like Rolling Stone and NME and all this shit. And it was like, here are your first look at Death Grips live, you know? And that was like one of my first big like published photo things.
Nice.
And yeah, it was cool. It was cool.
I don't know. I really feel like they turned a lot of stuff on its head. All the label dodging, Sex Pistols stuff, and I mean, that was part of the headlines too. Like when they stayed at the Chateau Marmont and taking pictures of their dicks.
Yeah.
And
headlines, baby.
Yeah, I guess. Know. Yeah, there is a big shock value part of it too.
Yeah, totally.
You know, maybe I'll grow out of my Death Grips thing.
Nah, Death Grips is tight though. I'm not angry enough for Death Grips anymore. Like, I'm too calm in my life to like put on fucking metal rap and shit.
Yeah, that's the thing though. If I want to calm down sometimes, I'll put on Mortician.
Yeah.
Which is self-proclaimed the most brutal death metal music known to man.
Yeah.
And it just really calms me down.
Really?
Yeah.
I've not heard Mortician. Metal is one genre that I'm like, I have not delved into since my high school days. Like, I know next to nothing about metal right now.
On the surface, it's kind of goofy, right? Because it's like really brutal
just
music.
Purposefully grating.
but it just taps into something for me where it just like kind of makes me calm, makes me feel like everything's all right. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. So you might be a serial killer.
Maybe I'm psychotic. Yeah. Maybe it's psychotic.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of like, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
Is now happening to me in my ears.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Wow.
I
It's
must be
almost
okay.
like if you have
I think that's the appeal.
if you have ADD, like they basically give you meth to calm you down. It's like, oh, you're really fucking hyper. Let us give you something to make you more hyper, and it'll make you calm. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you're like your brain is going fucking crazy with loud noises in it. Let's put some actual loud noise in your ears to calm your nerves.
Yeah, same logic.
Yeah.
Same logic.
Uh,
A lot of times, listening to angry music makes you feel less angry. You know,
I feel that. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely is a catharsis.
Yeah.
You know.
or you could just listen to Noah Jones and be a
Yeah.
psycho killer.
Yeah, actually, I think if I was killing somebody,
Like
I'd probably
Patrick Bateman.
Yeah, putting on Phil Collins or whatever.
Yeah.
like, yeah, that makes sense too. Like, what would be creepier, a fucking serial killer listening to Mortician or listening to like fucking Enya? You know what I mean? Like, you know,
Just
Enya?
Huey Lewis in the News.
Yeah, exactly. So
Like the most one-dimensional pop. So
I fucks with Huey Lewis in the News. I just packed up all my dad's records and I'm shipping them down to myself while I was back home in Alaska, and he has about 800 records and a surprising amount of Huey Lewis in the News. Like,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like a lot of it. And so I'm excited to delve into that on his old stereo system
Yeah.
and see what it is. 'Cause
sports, man.
those albums thump.
Yeah,
You know what
they're
I'm saying?
good.
Like,
There's Bay Area Zone, Marin Zone.
oh, Huey Lewis from Marin County?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the cover of Sports in San Rafael.
Yeah.
There's a bar, and that's the bar.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So he's like a Bay Area
They're
legend.
San Rafael. Yep, guys.
That explains the Huey Lewis Thiz face. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, don't get me started. I love all that music.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you Mac Dre guy.
Bay Area rap, I'm not going to sit here and claim that I am fully immersed in it or very familiar. I mean, I'm aware of a few Mac Dre songs, but I never dove into it. I've always been an E40 fan since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I remember when Sprinkle Me came out when I was probably in like 7th grade or something. Like I was the only one of my friends that was like,
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
fucks with this.
No, me too. I remember
Yeah.
I used to watch that video
On the box.
on well, I don't know where it
Yeah.
was. It was like in the Bay Area. It's called CMC. and
Okay,
it's like
yeah.
this local music video
Yeah.
thing. Not even on cable.
Yeah.
But I remember Sprinkle Me was on there.
Hipper than a hippopotamus. I would be like, yo, this is so tight. My friends would be like, this shit is whack. He's like
Sugar,
super off.
sugar.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until later that what's the record with the Rolex on the front and he's at the stove like cooking with his
know.
Pyrex.
Yeah.
It's the first record. And it's got the Bumble on it.
Uh,
I mean that whole album
yeah.
thumps, man.
Is that the one that has mustard and mayonnaise on it?
I don't think that one's on there.
I love mustard and mayonnaise. That's
Yeah.
a good song.
There's some good ones.
But anyway, yeah. So no, I'm like, yeah, I think that's a pretty hyper localized scene, and I think only a very specific type of hip hop head really like fully immerse themselves in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know. Like I always kept myself like I'm not a super obsessive fan about anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of what makes me a decent interviewer is that like I'll know enough to kind of have some preconceived notions about somebody, but I'm open-minded enough to like not be upset when my preconceived notions are in fact incorrect about them.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas I think like super fans will be like, remember when you did this and does that mean that? And then they're like, no. And you're like, your heart shatters and you're like, oh my God, now what does my fandom mean? Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, different like subgenres of rap music. I've always just kept an arm's distance and like I get into the stuff that I'm into, but I'm never like, oh, you know what? I like E40, so I'm gonna go on like a 4-year Bay Area only like K-hole where like I just learn everything about the ins and outs of the scene so that I'm like
Right.
an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Because I know people that have done that with drill music. I know that people that do that with the Dirty South or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And
totally.
and like, yeah, I just was never that kind of guy. I always like certain artists from certain scenes.
Yeah.
But I don't ever become like obsessive about a scene as a whole, if that makes sense.
Totally. I feel like I'm the same way with some caveats.
Yeah.
There's some I mean that's a good a good insight that's what makes you a good interviewer is some of that. But I think there's definitely some caveats for me where some stuff it just goes into the top 10 somehow.
Yeah.
But that's really few and far between. A lot of it's beyond my control, you know, like having seen like the first concert I ever went to.
What was it?
Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh, sick.
No, actually, I saw New Kids on the Block before that.
Oh, that's tight.
But I didn't become a super New Kids on the Block super fan.
I was a New Kids on the Block fanatic in like 3rd grade.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so cool. And my dad would be like, this shit sucks. And I'd be like, no, Dad, you just don't get it. These guys are hanging tough.
They're from Boston. So.
I was like, they're so sick.
I think Marky Mark actually opened up for them. I was tiny, you know.
Yeah.
But then as a teenager, I saw Smashing Pumpkins.
Nice.
And
that's pretty good.
Dr. Dre, Up in Smoke.
That's tight.
Oh yeah. So I mean, that stuff is like I can't escape it. Yeah. You know, those were the records of my generation.
I did not get to grow up seeing a lot of concerts in Alaska. My first concert was probably going with my mom to see Los Lobos, who did the fantastic cover of La Bamba from the La Bamba movie. But my first concert that I like chose to go to was Weird Al Yankovic, and he took my GT teacher. That's like my gate teacher.
Gate,
like gifted and talented.
Oh, okay.
So down here they call it gate. In Alaska we call it GT.
GT.
And so she took
AP.
Yeah, kind of.
No?
It's earlier than that. It's like before you can do AP in high school. When you're in like junior high and elementary school, they had GT, which was gifted and talented for advanced students. You know, I'm not trying to say that I'm smarter than anybody, but you know, facts is facts, bro. Yeah, she took me and all the other little nerdlings from my GT class to go see Weird Al Yankovic, which is like the most nerdy thing ever. But it was phenomenal. He's a fantastic performer. And then my next concert after that was Great White of Once Bitten, Twice Shy fame. That's an 80s butt rock band. And then they later became famous for setting a small bar in Connecticut on fire and killing almost everyone inside.
Oh no.
Do you remember that?
No.
Yeah. It's terrible. But I saw them in like a stadium in Fairbanks, or like an arena. And then
what band is this?
Great White. Once Bitten, Twice Shy, babe.
Oh,
I don't know. It's kind of like it's like a poor man's Motley Crue or something almost.
Okay.
From that era. But then when I moved to California at 19, that's when I really started like getting to go to a shitload of shows. And so my first like show that I bought tickets to and went to in LA was Talib Kweli's Reflection Eternal album release party.
Okay.
And I was already like fully into Black Star and was like so excited because Mos Def's solo album was so good. And I'm like, Talib Kweli's solo album is going to be amazing. And it was. The Reflection Eternal was fantastic. And so I went to the release party in what is now the Henry Fonda Theater. And Mos Def walked by me in the audience and I like fucking freaked out. And that was it. Then after that, I started going to shows like every fucking week.
The Fonda?
I think it was Fonda, yeah.
In LA?
In Hollywood.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, when I was 19, that's where I went. Yeah, you know, that big theater.
Yeah, I was just there.
Yeah.
This is my backstage wristband from the Fonda.
I did not have backstage at that show, but I mean, you know, you could flex on me. No. But yeah, so then, and then I started going to like all kinds of shows at like the Glass House in Pomona, because that's where I lived the first year that I was here.
Yeah, I liked that Raucous stuff for a while.
Oh, I loved Raucous.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was really cool. I got into that, not in a cool way, through Eminem.
Yeah, of course.
Which is not a cool
that's
bridge
Soundbombing 2. Is that how Soundbombing
That's where it started, yeah.
So Soundbombing 2, I think, is the gateway that a lot of people around our age are like ashamed to admit that that's how they found out about underground hip hop. But I'm not ashamed of that. I found out about underground hip hop because of fucking Soundbombing 2. I already liked Eminem, and I had never heard of LP. I had never heard of Raucous, and I heard that Eminem was on there.
Yeah.
And I bought that, and then that is what really opened my world to like. I mean, other than the Black Star record and the Mos Def record, I wasn't checking for like labels like that. Like I didn't look at the Razor.
The Mos Def one is black on both sides?
Yeah, black on both sides. And I don't know if that was on Ruckus or not, but the Black Star record was definitely on Ruckus. And so, anyway, I there's no shame in that, man. That shit opened my eyes to LP, which then opened my eyes to like Aesop Rock.
Yeah.
And you know what is another one is that opened a lot of people's eyes to
skate videos.
There was a short-lived battle on Showtime called the Blaze Battle. Did you ever see that? They televised the Blaze battle at one point, and Idea won, and he beat all these like New York dudes. And that was another one where I was like, oh my God, like battle rapping, it's like a real thing. It's, you know, and I started looking up Idea, and on Napster you could find all these like Idea begat fucking Atmosphere, which begat Brother Ali, whatever. Like you find all these other underground things that way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was like, as a 19-year-old, like very formative for me.
Yeah, totally.
You know, I felt like that was my punk rock.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, fuck the mainstream, bro. Check out all these cool underground rappers.
Yeah.
That's how I found out about Living Legends.
Yeah.
All that shit, yeah.
Was that older siblings?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. See, I was an older sibling, so I was the one getting my brother into shit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister got me into Atmosphere. I remember Company Flow had a song on the Shorties video.
Yeah.
Brandon Turner had Company Flow, and immediately I was like, you know, I bought the CD.
Yeah.
And loved it.
Yeah.
And so my fucking sister, she got me into X-Rated and like Sacramento hip hop.
Okay.
Which is like kind of horrorcore hip hop.
Oh, yeah.
And the Grouch and
To this day, love the Grouch.
Yeah.
Like the Grouch follows me on Instagram now, and anytime he likes a photo, I'm like, I always think of like what that would mean to me as a 19-year-old. I'm like, this would have like shattered my world at that time. I loved him so much.
The same guy who did his latest album cover did the album cover for the podcast.
Oh, really?
Or the podcast cover.
No shit.
Yeah.
What a small web we weave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Friend of the show, sort of.
Friend of the show. Shout out friend of the show, Grouch. Now you know. Yeah, interesting.
Cool.
Origin stories.
To back it up a little bit,
please.
As far as Bay Area hip hop, I was not a Mac Dre guy, and I didn't know what was going on until I was much older and lived in San Francisco. And somebody gave me a burned copy of. It was originally like somebody had mixed the vinyl into this mixtape that became incredibly popular on the streets. And it was called Tales of Two Andres. And then eventually they changed it. They changed the songs and they changed the mix and they released it commercially. So if you know the Tale of Two Andres, it's not the right one. The Tale of Two Andres is really Tales of Two Andres, and it's a completely different mix and much better songs. But it's all Andre Nicotina and Mac Dre songs mixed together. And that for me was my graduate degree in Bay Area hip hop.
In Thizzleonomy.
Yeah. In Thislamic.
Thislamic. There you go.
But it's
like
like
the proper tech terms.
I mean, it's just the most quotable, you know.
I there was a time in the mid 2000s where I think like white dudes from the Bay were one of the most like recognizable subcultures of rap, where it was just like
hilarious.
You could see them in any airport and be like, oh, that's a white guy from the Bay. And I still think like to this day, if you're like between the ages of, I don't know, maybe right now between the ages of 30 and 37, say, and you grew up like as a Bay Area thiz face fucking rap ass fan in San Francisco or Oakland, even as an adult, you will kind of cock your hat to the side a specific way that says like, I am from the Bay. You know what I mean? Like I still see that. It'll be dudes wearing normal ass clothes in like the SF airport or something, but they just have their baseball hat cocked a certain way. And I go, that right there, that's a Mac Dre fan.
There you go.
that guy will pop his collar and
that's
fucking sideshow right now.
Yeah.
So
I love San Francisco. It's Andre Nicotina is in my top, maybe number one. So quotable. Yeah, I mean, I could still sing all the lyrics to Sonny Kim.
Yeah.
And most it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just catch myself sometimes like singing it in my head.
That's tight.
It's just, I don't know why.
Who else has been on your podcast?
I just had. Well, we hit the top 100 in the U.S.
That's tight. With who?
With Jerry Sue.
Who's that?
Pro skater.
Pro skater. You will not hit the top 100 with Lee Shaner. I'll tell you that much. You might hit the top 500 or so.
Yeah.
That's tight. Jerry, what's he up to?
He is actually. We got in trouble.
Why?
Because we were saying things about. It got political.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Barracks posted the episode.
Oh,
the Barracks?
Yeah, of course. Shout out, the Barracks is my dudes.
Yeah.
So, yes, shout out to Barra. Shout out Eric Costin. Worked with them a lot of times.
Eric.
Really good dudes.
It's their two names.
Yeah, exactly.
Get together.
I mean, I go to the Battle of the Barracks every year and shoot and stuff. Yeah, it's fun.
Hell yeah. I want to skate there. I want to skate at Beebles Park too. Yeah, because
I took my little nephews and they skated the barracks. It was sick.
Sweet. Yeah. No, I like indoor parks. I used to skate at Double Rock at the Thrasher Park in San Francisco. And
I used to play a lot of Tony Hawk.
I don't know anybody. So.
No, I'm just
you used to what?
So I used to play a lot of Tony Hawk too.
Hell yeah.
That's about the depth of my skating knowledge.
What was I saying? So the drama.
He posted it.
Yeah, the drama that surrounded it is the conversation took a turn at some point to where he was talking about getting dropped from his sponsor and how it really affected him. And we both kind of went into the weeds a little bit, and it turned into a little bit of shit talking. Yeah. And so I got in trouble he called me. Actually, it's funny.
Edit it.
Yeah. Well, it goes farther, but I don't know if I want to waste your time talking.
Right. I like podcast drama.
So he called me, and I had had a few beers, and he was tipsy, but we didn't know each other. Or
drunk.
Yeah.
So you guys ended up nude FaceTime?
Dude, you got to take the thing down.
Yeah. Oh, fuck.
And I'm in trouble. Yeah. And I guess it went up to the corporate office.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, this is not cool. Jerry can't be on this show. I'm unfamiliar with what's going on with Supreme. Totally. When I went to Cal Arts, we used to go there and skate the bowl, and this was 12 years ago or whatever. Right. So I was gone. I don't know what's going on. And then Tyler, the Creator, made it super popular. Yeah. And I come back, so they didn't like it. So I had to go and have a meeting with the manager of Supreme. It was upsetting, really.
Yeah.
I was losing sleep.
What happened at the meeting? The manager of the store, or like the manager of the company?
No, of the store.
He's a retail manager?
I don't know.
I've always thought the whole cult of retailers is very strange to me. A lot of them have gone on to do great things, don't get me wrong.
Streetwear's funny. I mean, it had a big surge at one point.
Yeah, it totally did. But I think now, I don't know.
2005, 6, 7.
Yeah, when A-Life and Supreme were super sick and still kind of unknown. And if you knew about it, you were kind of up on something. At that same time in 2005, 2006, it was Melrose was still popping. It wasn't even Fairfax.
Really?
Were you down here?
Sort of. I mean, it doesn't count. I was in Santa Clarita.
Melrose was where you would go to kind of buy your, at the time it was you go buy your Dunks. You know what I mean? Because Dunks were really big. And then Fairfax was just kind of on the come up. And I think, I'm not a fucking Fairfax historian, don't get me wrong, but on gut instinct, I think A-Life was kind of a bigger deal at the time, and then Supreme moved in, and that became the big deal. You know what I mean? But anyway, then Melrose completely died, but now Melrose is on the come up again. Melrose is very cracking again.
Yeah. It's hard, I think, because you can't control what people are going to do with your brand. Take high fashion, for example.
Yeah.
Gucci advertises everywhere. They're huge.
Yeah.
Louis Vuitton, it's owned by a conglomerate, and they advertise. They do stuff that companies like Goyard wouldn't do. Uh-huh. Goyard, they don't advertise. They don't endorse rappers or influencers.
Oh, I don't think any of those companies endorse rappers. I think most of the time they're just waiting for an excuse to tell rappers to fuck off. I think a lot of those high fashion brands are super racist.
All I'm saying is what pisses me off is the glomming on and it being brought into pop culture in a way that's distasteful. But a lot of that stuff is beyond the company's control. Mm-hmm. And Supreme just sold to a big sports conglomerate or something for $1 billion. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the decisions they make, and I don't know what's going on.
So what happened when you had to have the meeting? What did he tell you? Yo, you're not welcome in this store no more.
No, he was super nice, and he's it's all right. People talk shit, and we just agreed that I'll just cut that part out and put it back up. Because I had no episode at that point. I had to take it down. I had to make the YouTube video private.
Yeah, of course.
And there had already been tens of thousands of downloads. Yeah. So I walked in there tell me what to do. I don't want to fuck Jerry over. So we agreed to just take out that part and republish it.
Where you said that Supreme is a tourist trap?
Yeah. And it kind of makes me sick because I didn't move here that long ago. Yeah. Do you think somebody like Jake Phelps would give a fuck if you said that about Thrasher?
Right.
He would love it.
Right.
Down here, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to offend somebody.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess. Yeah, I don't know. San Francisco is different though. Like how you just moved down here? Like how many years ago? 2 years ago. Because I started going to San Francisco a lot last year, and the more I went, the more I fucking hated it. I think San Francisco is on a steep decline right now, and not because it's fucking dirty and filthy, and there's like a huge disenfranchisement issue going on with the wealth disparity, but
there always has to.
But I mean, yeah, it's really like it is so overrun with fucking tech bros and douchebags that it's like unlivable. Literally. And there's no in between anymore. There's like no middle class there. You're either rich or homeless, and that's it. Like, there's no in between. It's so wild up there.
Yeah, it's a great place to watch a Bentley drive past a homeless guy.
Yeah, it's terrible. Almost every time I went up there last year, I was probably there like 11 times. I think out of those 11 times, I probably saw 4 people shitting. Like outside, just you accidentally turn and like somebody's shitting.
Yeah, I saw a bum die once in front of my house.
That's terrible. I saw a dude a
dude shooting up. I mean,
I saw a dude shooting up, like, but mad normal looking. Like he didn't look that different from you, but he took off a windbreaker with just one sleeve and shot up just as he's walking by. Yeah. Like nothing was wrong, and I was like, holy fuck, this place is really different. Like this is wild. So yeah, San Francisco, man. They got to do something about that income inequality there. Like, it's crazy.
Well, from the time I moved in to the time I moved out, the rent went up almost 300%.
Holy shit.
When I stepped out the door, it went up almost 300%.
Yeah.
Almost tripled.
Yeah. That's wild.
Right?
It doesn't make sense up there. It's crazy.
The guy underneath me, he was in his 90s.
Yeah.
And he was had a really thick Irish brogue, and he had been there since before I was born.
Yeah.
So people just hang on, and it's tough. The only way that people can live, I mean, Manhattan's the same way. The only way that you can live that lifestyle where you're in the city or like on Manhattan, you have to have some special situation where,
control, crazy rent control.
Or my parents own the building, you know?
Yeah.
But if you're not a native, it's
a tough one.
Yeah.
I feel bad. You're going to have to cut out like 15 minutes of Supreme talk out of this one.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Man, that was real. Yeah.
But anyway, did I break structure here?
No. It's I know the ones you do a lot of focus on the guest and
I'm
their
formulaic.
history.
I'm hella formulaic. Really? Yeah, I have a process that I want to get through when I'm doing it, and but everybody's podcasts are different. Yours is just yours is a conversation, yeah.
Yeah. It's there's really no structure. So a lot of times there's specific things I want to ask people.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about podcasting. You know, and about your new show.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And hip hop. But other than that,
let's talk about all those things. I'm down.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. A lot of times people already have something they want to talk about.
Yeah. When I do podcasts with other people, I'm always surprised how much I talk and how fast it goes. I'm like, wait, I talked so much, and that was already an hour, but I feel like I didn't get to say anything that I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Or like I always feel like I have like a million more things I could say because, yes, while my podcast is mostly concentrated on the guests and I try my hardest to talk as little as possible, the fact of the matter is that is a process I've taught myself to try and fight my fucking overwhelming narcissism and my like preternatural ability to just talk endlessly. You know what I'm saying? Like in real life, I can just ramble on and on and on and on forever. Yeah. And so I think that part of starting a podcast for me was like, you need to learn how to listen. You know, that's really what it was. Too. And the podcast has really made me a better person for that in like just being like, shut up and listen, you know? And it's made, and I can take that skill of shutting up and listening into like everyday encounters and meet somebody for the first time now and they walk away going like, wow, he's a really good conversationalist. When I didn't say anything, I just asked a few questions and let them talk for fucking however long, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I noticed that too when I was doing the episodes more frequently.
Yeah.
I felt better at talking.
Yeah, totally.
And
how many episodes have you done?
This is 24.
Yeah.
But it's been years.
Yeah.
So when I started the second season at episode 14, I was doing them every 2 weeks for a while and then it sort of slowed down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have the resources to do them as regularly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does make you better at talking, and it helps work things. It's kind of like therapy in some ways.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that's why I was doing it for, because when I started mine, I was down and out. And things were not going that great.
That's why everybody starts podcasts.
Yeah.
We're fucking millennial white dudes. We start podcasts instead of going to therapy. Like, that's real. Because you know what? Starting a podcast is cheaper than going to therapy.
That's a Lee Shaner quote right there. It's there.
True,
put the quotes around that.
I mean, that's the thing though, is like it's much cheaper to just spend the initial, like, I don't know, what, $400, $500 on like getting the podcasting stuff than it is to like spend that every month on talking to a therapist 4 times a week.
The question I was asking myself was, is this happening to anyone else?
Yeah.
My life was fucked up at the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the same reason I started mine. I was down in the dumps. I lived in a fucking apartment building that was fucking terrible. It was a slum, basically. My music career was not going anywhere that I wanted it to, and my work situation was underemployed at best. And so I figured, while I'm between these records, because that was my concentration for the longest, I was like trying to be a fucking successful rapper, or at least a self-sustaining rapper. Yeah. And I figured, like, okay, while I'm between records, I can start something that will at least give me an excuse to tweet and Instagram once a week. Exactly. Keep yourself out there. And so for that first year of 2013, when I started Kinda Neat, somehow I managed to not miss a single week. I did 52 episodes that first year. I started in March, and by the next March, I had released 52 episodes. And some of those was recording 3 times in a day because I knew I was going to be out of town the next week, or whatever, like rushing back from the airport to try and do this so that I could have it done by the time I need to come out. Like, it was
a lot of self-discipline when there's nobody paying you.
Yeah, exactly. And it was really hard, but it was worth it. And then I started getting more and more forgiving with myself, and I went, okay, 2014, like, I'll try to do it. If I miss a couple weeks, no big deal, and I think I ended up doing 30 something that year. And then the next year I was just like, okay, this is bi-monthly now, it's like two per month. And then by the end of it, when I realized that it's just more of a resume piece than an actual career, I was doing hopefully one a month, but the fact of the matter is, it eventually that consistency helped gain some traction. And so every year was an exponential jump in followers on YouTube. It went from the first year we made 10,000 subscribers. The next year we had 30,000, right? So it was that 10 plus, it was like 10 times 2, right, is 20. So we made 20,000 the next year. And then that next year it was 60.
Yeah. Wow, you got up to 60. Where is it now?
It's at almost 400,000 now. Or like 300. It's at 300,000 something. Yeah. So, and that's nothing really compared to a lot of like actual YouTubers. You know what I'm saying? Like other people in the market are up in the millions. You know what I'm saying? Colors that does relatively the same thing that we were doing, in a more polished sense. That they're way up in the millions of subscribers.
Yeah. You get a plaque at 1 million.
Yeah, well, I got a plaque at 100,000.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, you get one at 100,000, you get one at 1 million, and then you get one at like 10 million, I think, or something like that. So, it just became this thing where it really was a proof in concept of like, hey, I like know how to find what people are going to listen to next, and I'm curating this very specific type of music listen. I'm curating to this very specific type of music listener, and if you do that and you stay true to who you're trying to get to listen to it, like, you can develop a very loyal fan base. And I hopefully in like the next 10 years from now, I'm hoping that I get a bunch of like 25 to 35 year olds going like, yo man, you really like shaped my idea of what music is with what you were doing. Like, that's what I wanted, because I didn't have that when I was young. I couldn't go on YouTube and have somebody like picking a new artist for me every week going like, hey, if you liked that thing last week, you'll probably also like this thing.
Yeah.
And I wished that I would have had that.
There you go.
And that's what I did. And, by the time that Kinda Neat was kind of wrapping up, and not to say that it's completely wrapped up, but right now I don't have time for it, and the studio is not available to me anymore. That by the time it wrapped up, the artists we were having on the show in 2018 were saying like, yo, here I am, I'm a 19 or 20-year-old person, and like what you were doing in 2013 when I was a 13-year-old, or a 14-year-old, that like changed my life, and now I'm a musician because of it. you know. And so that was really cool to see it come kind of full circle in 5 years, you know. Yeah. So anyway,
that's from Kind of Neat.
From Kind of Neat.
Wow.
And some kids from Knox Steady too. Like I did just a written interview with Denzel Curry last year, 2 years ago, and where I was just kind of interviewing him on tape, and I said, oh yeah, you know, I do this thing Kind of Neat, if you ever want to come on. And he goes, wait, Kind of Neat? He's like, wait, does that mean you used to do Knox Steady? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, dude, I used to fuck with Knox Steady. I'm like, are you serious? Like, that's one of the biggest rappers of his little generation, you know what I'm saying? So it's cool to hear that kind of shit.
Yeah, that feels great.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't get to have that kind of like, you know, that validation of what you were doing be so visceral. Like people, you know, a lot of people don't get to experience any love until they die, you know what I'm saying? So like to get to hear that I influenced some kids while I'm still here, that's a really good feeling.
Yeah. Creative people.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you do it? I need to make something.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah, me too.
Other people aren't like that. My girlfriend's not like that at all.
Yeah.
She doesn't understand it. But how does a dude from Fairbanks, Alaska come, you know, want to rap and make stuff?
Right. I don't know the answer to that. And for like, I've always had this kind of like artistic, what I used to call it like an artistic Napoleonic complex, where I thought everybody else was a better artist than me or something. But now I'm realizing that it's a, imposter syndrome, kind of. Like I've always felt like an imposter, like, I'm not a real artist. I'm somebody that like taught myself to be an artist, you know, because I have talked to people who like have this obsessive need to create. Like I always use my friend Serengeti as an example. Like he puts out like, I don't know, fucking 5 records a year or something. It's like, he's so prolific. And I just like, I'm like, where does that come from? And he's like, dude, I have to, like, I just sit down and it comes out of me and I can't help it. And he's like, he's like, you really think you could quit making music? Like, I just can't. Like, I've tried, I just can't. And for me, it's not like that. Like the music thing, it's easy for me to step away from it for a while and step back into it and do it as it comes to me, because that creative need you're talking about, I can express it in a million different ways. Like to me, getting out of the house and sitting down in front of a microphone and talking to you today, that takes as much creative energy for me as sitting down and writing a song does, because I'm a fucking dude that's like, my natural inclination is to like sit on the couch depressed all day. You know what I'm saying? So, so if I can like gather up the energy to like get out and go do something, it's exhausting. Yeah. And you have to think the whole time, and thinking is the hard part. Like I always, like I have a border collie right now. Like I have a border collie mix who's like this like,
smart dog.
He's super smart dog, right? And they're also very driven, and they can't really be worn out physically, right? Yeah. And this has become a great analogy for me. But they can't be worn out physically. But if you can get them thinking and using their brain for just a few minutes, they'll fucking fall asleep for like 2 hours right afterwards, right? Because the way to get a smart dog tired is to make him think and make decisions and come up with a creative solution, or teach him what you're trying to make him learn, right? And so that creativity, whether it comes out for me in doing a podcast or making a song or writing an article or taking photos, like it all exhausts that same part of my creative brain and satisfies that same thing.
Totally.
And what I found is that a lot of like, whatever you want to call them, followers, fans, what have you, like people know me for different reasons. Like I still have some people that are very hardcore intuition rap fans, right? I know other people that don't even know that I rap, that only listen to the podcast. And those people that listen to the podcast, if I put out a record, they're not going to give a shit about it. And they're going to be like, why are you putting out this stupid record? Like, fucking talk to more people. Whereas when I talk to people, my fucking rap fans are like, yo, quit talking to people and quit wasting time. Like, make some fucking music.
Yeah.
And both of those types of followers or fans need to understand that, like, these are a symbiotic relationship. You know what I mean? Or symbiotic relationship. I don't know how to pronounce it. But, like, you know, those two things both live inside me and project themselves from the same part of my brain, which is like that creative wave that I don't know why we can't satisfy it. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know why either.
Yeah. But how's that fucking border collie analogy? Pretty good, I think.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good analogy. Yeah. How old's your dog?
He'll be a year next week.
No way. Yeah, my dog will be a year next week.
Really? No shit. What's his birthday?
I don't know.
We're saying April 17th. That's our dog's birthday.
I'd have to check with Kristen.
Yeah, so he'll be a year old. He's still a pup, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always been as long as I can remember, this is what matters. Making art, that's what matters.
Yeah.
So
I've always felt
however you're going to get there, that's the end.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think part of it's genetic and part of it's like taught.
I do think a lot of the drive from within is something that you were born with. And I really think that I could tell anybody the exact blueprint of how I got to where I am, right? Or like how I built the thing that I built. Like I could tell anybody a step-by-step way to do it. But I know that 99% of the people that I gave a fucking blueprint to would still not be able to pull it off because it takes a certain type of crazy to be able to go to like have the faith that if you put in that work, it will pay off, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big thing is like that drive, that like faith in your ability to like do the work. Nobody's really willing to do the work, you know? And that's the thing is like none of these
That's
not that
so true.
not that I ever built an empire, but none of the empires that people fucking love and relish were built on talent alone. Those were all people breaking their backs with work.
Oh yeah, it's a different part of your brain from appreciating
You know what I'm saying?
art to making it. They can overlap, but it's two different sides.
That's right. And so I'm sure that anybody from I'm sure like Jay-Z and Diddy would both tell you the same fucking thing that like, yes, they're extremely charming humans with huge personalities, but both of them would tell you they probably broke their backs working before anybody knew who they were. And that's why people know who they are now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just takes a different kind. So anyway, so how did a kid from Fairbanks get into rapping? I don't know, but I felt like I didn't deserve to be rapping. And I felt like an imposter from the jump, but that made me work at it twice as hard because I do have an instinct for rhythm, I guess. Like memorizing raps and reciting them perfectly was never difficult for me, and staying on beat was never difficult for me. But I could tell you that like to become an actual good rapper, still feel like I'm learning. You know, you have to always be learning and teaching yourself, or else you make your best thing first and keep getting worse. But if you want to get better at it, you got to keep learning and keep working and keep teaching yourself.
Yeah.
So
you got to keep trying, keep writing shitty songs until the good one comes out.
That's right. Because and you know that you're growing as an artist if you think that the thing you made a couple years ago fucking sucks now. Because when you put it out, you thought that was the best thing you'll ever make. But when you start to hate it and you go, this sucks, then you know that you're actually growing as an artist. And you know what? There's not an old song in any of my catalogs that I think is fucking great anymore. So maybe that means that I still got some growth, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I said that to someone the other day, pretty big guitar player in LA. We were talking about making records briefly, and I was like, dude, every time I tell someone like, oh, go check out my record, I always, preface it by saying, I'm so sick of this thing. I wish I didn't have to tell you about it.
Right.
And he said, yeah, I can't listen to my music. If I did, I would go crazy.
Right.
It's
exactly.
Like snake eating its tail.
Yeah.
But
I just took my first record ever offline, and people are bitching at me about it because like, I won't put it back online. And I'm just like, you know what? I just can't. Like, I hate that so much that I like don't want anybody to find out about me because of that. And I just can't.
I think you got to be tough.
No, I just can't. It's a literal different person because it's before I got my tonsils taken out, so my voice is completely different. My everything about it is just like it's just not me, and I don't think that it's a record that deserves to be like making any revenue at all. And it just has some like songs that I look back at as problematic and shit, and I'm just like, no, I just had to take it off. And so it is what it is. But there are still those people who are like, that's the best thing you've ever done. And I'm like, I'm sorry if that's the way you feel. Like, you don't gotta listen to other shit, but this is gone.
There's some Tom Waits story where he was over at someone's house and they put on Closing Time, and or the early years, I forget which one. He took it off the turntable, broke it, and threw it out the front door.
That's how I feel. That's a great story. And
I forget who it was. It was some other artist. But.
Yeah, that's funny. So the podcast I'm doing now, basically, Skull Candy just gave me a fucking podcast, and they're like, you've been doing a podcast, we need a podcast, you do one. And they had faith in that because of what they saw in Kinda Neat, and the fact that I had been working with them and some of their team for a long time on the photo end, and they saw like, oh, Lee leaves photo shoots early and doesn't come to the dinners because he's like going to do this thing that he's working on in LA, and like, oh, you know, they watched it grow over the years as I was working with them in a different aspect.
Hey, you're answering my questions before I ask.
Yes, sorry, my bad. You brought it up earlier, so I'm just getting to it. Okay. Do you want to ask the question?
No.
But
it's not your first rodeo.
No. Well, I told you I could talk, man. And I catch myself explaining things too fast, so I go back and over-explain them. Like, oh wait, and this makes sense because of that.
So you were working with them before.
Yeah.
So you had a relationship. I looked them up, and I was like, this is a privately held company, and it was public, and then it was private again. They're in Utah.
Yeah, they have a wild story where like for a long time it seemed like they were always on the verge of just getting bought or sold or whatever. But they have a really stable team right now and a lot of good creatives there. And it's kind of like a new team every few years there, like the falling of Zion and the Matrix, you know, like it just falls every couple of years, then they rebuild. And so right now they have a really solid creative team, and my buddy Dom and I have been working with them a lot in the past on photo stuff. And like I said, the people who have been there for a long time were seeing like this thing that I was building. And so when it came time to when they had like they got a new CMO in and new designers and new whatever. And these guys said they were smart enough to go like, oh, we're a headphone company. We need a music program, because they didn't have that for many, many years. And so initially they brought me on as like, hey, you know, you shoot photos and you interview people. Can you like make blog posts about artists? So boom, 2016 I started, the end of 2016 and all of 2017, I was just like, I would have somebody on Kinda Neat, and then I would say, hey, while you're in town, you want to like do photos, and I'll do a written interview with you and give you some Skull Candy gear. And they'd be like, oh, sure. So I started kind of curating a music program for them that way, and making them playlists and stuff. And then the next year they were like, yo, we want to do a podcast. Like, would you host it? And so in 2018, I hosted this podcast, but I didn't have any say in the guests. And so the guests were like really fucking random and really weren't telling a story. Because one of the things
that's part of your Midas touch is the guest, right?
Right. And that's hard to explain to somebody in a corporate world, though, that like, yeah, I know that I interview people, but like the reason people listen is not necessarily because of the interviews. Like the interviews are proficient, but it's really about the guests that I'm picking and that like hitting them right at the right moment in their career to where they're catching this kind of critical mass, and that it speaks to the tastes of the people that follow along. And they all kind of tell this. They just tell a story, and I don't really know how to explain that story, but it's like following along, you start to really have faith in the curation, right? And so they didn't have me curating last year, and because of that, the brand story seemed a little off to me. Like it was all over the map, and there was no real kind of connection between the artists, not even genre wise, but just like, you know, Adam Goes Ham, Adam from Ham on Everything. So
yeah,
it's one of my best buds, and he's really helping out on the project this year. He's booking everything. And so we collaborate a lot on like, who do we want to be the next guest this year, this month, whatever. Right. And, we were talking about like, oh, it's really cool that we're having this person on, because then it turns out they're going to play a show with that person who's another person that we had on that. And it's like, that was how I always tried to do Kinda Neat. It was like some Matt Pinfield from MTV2 shit, where it's like, oh, here's the connection between these two bands, and you can get there by some
120 minutes.
Yeah, 120 minutes. You can get there by some weird 6 degrees of separation, but it shows that this band is connected to this band.
Yeah.
And with Kinda Neat, that's how it always was.
Like, right. I was gonna say, you said I don't know what the story is, but the story is like, here's my perspective on music.
Right.
And here's, maybe to a lesser degree, here's me giving people an opportunity that I never got.
Right, absolutely. It is an opportunity that I never got, to have somebody point out shit. And now every fucking algorithm...
Or maybe you did get it, but you think it's valuable and you want to get it.
Right, totally. And really with Kinda Neat, what I started to realize was how interconnected everybody was. And by the time I was having these guests on in 2018, you could trace them back all the way to some connection with the guests in 2013. And you could show how small this music world is and how everybody's kind of intertwined if you're doing cool shit.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, this year with the 12 Moods project for Skull Candy, they've given me and Adam the reins for the curation. And we're really getting to pick some acts that we think are really cool, and we're going to hit them right at the right time on their trajectory to where a brand collaboration like somebody with Skullcandy will be great for them, and them collaborating with the brand will also be great for Skullcandy, like, because we're trying to, we're trying to say like, yo, hey, here's a company that fucking makes headphones, and they're trusting their fucking curation to people with like legitimate credibility in the LA alt world of like curating, whether that be parties or YouTube content or what have you. Like, these are dudes who know what they're talking about, and so hopefully that collaboration with them will help build some cultural capital for Skullcandy, and in the meantime also be a building block for Adam and I in our future endeavors.
He has a podcast too. I think I watched the one with
Ham Radio via All Def Digital. Yeah, him and Romo. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched the one with Slug Christ.
Oh, yeah. Shout out Awful Records. Anyway, that's what I'm working on now. And it's weird. It's weird being like, I've been independent for so long, and now there's a lot of fucking spoons in the pot. There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And so, you gotta, again, it's like starting over, and it's like what I talked about with that in the photo world where like you have to learn to navigate how to deal with a lot of different types of people to get your voice heard, you know what I'm saying? And so that's what I'm starting all over with.
More corporate,
yeah. That's what I'm starting all over with this, is just kind of like, all right.
It's a skill unto itself. A lot of people are really good at that.
And I'm not. And so that's another thing. Like, now I looked at it as like, okay, learning to be an interviewer helped me with one aspect of my life. And now it's time for me to like do this, working this angle with a corporation and as a consultant, and try to like teach myself to be better at dealing with all these different types of personalities and egos within a company, because everybody is essentially trying to make sure that the role that they played is the role that gets complimented the most. You know what I'm saying?
Oh boy.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it sounds accurate.
Yeah. And so what I really want to do, and just in general with my life, is always make sure that while that everybody wants their thing to be the thing that people notice the most, it's to make all those voices meld together into something that's like an actual great product in the long run. You know, something that people want to watch, because in the long run, that's what I want to do with content, is like make shit that people want to watch. Yeah. And it's hard.
So you went more the YouTube route.
Yeah.
Who was your host when you were doing those early ones by yourself, independently?
The kind of neat?
Yeah.
I was hosting the podcast.
I know. I mean hosting the like distribution.
So I didn't go with the podcast host because I didn't know, there wasn't really a clear-cut winner at the time. It's Libsyn now, I guess, is what everybody uses. Is that what you use?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just did, I started a WordPress site and used a plugin called Podpress.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was using Podpress.
I mean, this is total.
It was not good.
Nerd, this is like inside baseball question.
Inside baseball. It's not good. It didn't have any real support with analytics. It didn't have... it was not helpful using Podpress. I would definitely go with Libsyn at this point if I was starting again.
And did you ever worry about...
Oh,
there he is.
Puppy? Hey, buddy.
Let's find out his birthday.
Hey, buddy. You are so cute.
When's Sonny's birthday?
Sonny turns 1 on the 22nd.
Okay.
My dog's 1-year-old birthday is April 17th.
Stop.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Where were we? Oh,
but we should fact check. Yes. The dog's birthday is 22nd, so 2 weeks.
There you go.
Okay.
I'm good.
Oh no, thank you. I appreciate it. I quit drinking 3 years ago. Can you believe that?
Congratulations.
That's another reason that have my head screwed on straight, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was totally straight edge a few years ago I think I did 8 months.
Really?
No smoking, no nothing.
I quit everything, including fucking around, which has made my life much easier. Finding a solid woman to invest all my time in has really helped me stay on a track.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice.
That's when you got together with your fiance?
Yeah, about 3 years ago. And we both just quit drinking together. And now we're getting married in June.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Crazy, getting old, growing up.
How old are you now?
I'm 38. I'll be 38 in July. I've been saying that I'm 38 to prepare myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm 37.
We did sober January.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to always find myself like trying to quit for things for little periods of time. Like, oh, I'm going to quit coffee for this month, or I'm going to
quit water.
quit this. I'm going to quit that. And I never quit water. But eventually I was just like, I'm always like trying to quit for short periods. And I'm just realizing like alcohol doesn't make me make smart decisions. It makes me make terrible decisions. And so I am going to just stop drinking. And it's
a crutch.
It's been so useful for me personally. And I'm not somebody who was like, oh, I miss it. Or I don't know. I always talk about this for no fucking reason, but you didn't even ask me about it. But yeah, I don't know. Like,
well, she offered you IPA.
Yeah, she did. That's what.
Plus, drinking and podcasts are not friends.
Right. Perhaps.
Have you ever heard a podcast when people are drinking on it?
No.
It's always
I have.
terrible.
Yeah, like Drink Champs and shit like that. You ever listen to Drink Champs?
No.
It gets the first hour.
So I made that. That's a rule. That's
the first
structure
45 minutes is like pretty good, and then it like they do like 2 hour and 30-minute podcasts sometimes, and the last hour and a half is just like belligerence.
I wish you could thumbs down a podcast sometimes. Did you do any advertisers?
So I never.
Did you get into that world at all?
I didn't. I never
like mid-roll and shit.
I never did any advertisers. I never really even tried. I tried to do a Patreon thing. And that was like, it was okay. We had like some supporters, but it wasn't, I was charging per episode, or having pledges per episode. So, and by that point I was only doing like 1 episode a month. So it just wasn't enough to make it survive. Here's the thing is that when I started, I wanted to not have advertisers because I was going to rely on YouTube money, because when I started, my YouTube CPM was exorbitantly high. Like, right from the jump, from the first video that I released with Chuck English, like we got our partnership and we were always in the black from the jump. Like we were getting YouTube money and it was good.
I just listened to that episode, by the way.
With the Chuck English one?
Yesterday. I love Chuck English too.
Really?
Yeah.
It's probably not a great episode. I was still like learning my craft at that point, and like learning how to kind of reel people in and get in. But anyway, it was early. Mm-hmm. That said, as time went on, YouTube kept pushing the goal line farther and farther back. And around like 2015, they got really good with their music recognition algorithm.
Right.
And so pretty much as soon as I would upload a video, it would say, oh, this is copyrighted and we're going to give all the money to the publishing company, which is fine. I'm stoked that artists were getting those royalties. But that said, like the YouTube channel became like next to worthless, and that's kind of the point where I realized like, all right, this is now just like for resume and brand building, and then we'll hope it pays off in the long run by getting hired by people to do this type of thing. And so that's where I'm at now, is trying to freelance and get hired to work people's music programs, or at least get them off the ground for them, and I'll just be like a hired hitman for that. So like Skull Candy, I look at it as like, I hope that I'm there for a few years getting to do this, but I always look at it, every contract is a year. And at the end of that year, I don't know what's going to happen. Right. So I'm hoping that as time builds that, I will just be somebody who can work freelance for companies to work angles with emerging artists or even bigger artists.
That's the next obvious step.
Figure out how to create content that's valuable for both parties. Yeah, and it's a very niche thing, but I'm hoping that I'm like kind of early enough in that realm to where we can be the guys that do that for a while. Yeah. So whether that be with like whatever kind of company, whether that be with an alcohol company or a fucking shoe company or apparel or whatever, who cares? We'll get in there and go, oh, you make this doodad and we think this artist represents the same kind of attitude that you have. Yeah. And so here, like, let's do something together.
In the podcasting world, do you ever get invited to do big ones?
No.
Like Marin or something?
Never, no. Marin's obviously one of like the heroes of the genre for me, and definitely in listening to Kinda Neat, you can hear that I like totally stole his whole format. Like, and I'm very open about that. I say I love how he created kind of this. It was almost like a journal that happened to have interviews in it. Like the first 20 minutes are talking about him. That's what I would always do. I would 20 minutes talking about myself, and then I'd have a guest where I try to not talk at all. I like that format. to get to your question though, no, I never really got invited to any big podcasts.
Yeah, you could totally do that.
And
I could see that.
I would love to, but again, it's kind of that's like outsider art shit. Like since I never went the route of like I never did a lot of brand collaborating with podcasts because the podcast I was doing was so outside of the incestual world of podcasts. I never had, most of the people that I had on Kinda Neat were never on another podcast again after that. Like that was it. Like they did a podcast and then that's it. Like because they're these emerging artists who are trying to carve a niche for themselves. So it's not like they were like some of them have gone on to be on Maron and shit like that. And I'm really stoked when that happens because that means like I made a right choice and now they're like crossing over into the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
But no, a lot of them are people that aren't doing a shitload of podcasts and therefore podcasts aren't hearing about what I was doing. You know what I mean?
You said you kind of have your formula when you do the interviews. What is it?
I think that I can squeeze in about 30 years of information into an hour, right? So I try to start with very early life and childhood, and then I chronologically go through like, okay, well then what happened in elementary, like what happened then, and then what happened in high school, and then what happened with college, and then how did your career get started, and then now you're here. And most of the people that I have on the show are, between 20 and 30 or something like that. They're in that range to where I can fill up the hour with like what happened in their life. And the reason I realized that an hour covers 30 years is because I started trying to interview my mom on the podcast. And it turned into like an ongoing thing where we had 3 or 4 episodes with her. And every year I was able to cover about 25 years of her life. You know what I mean? Or every episode, I'm sorry, that I was able to like cover about 25 years of her life. And I was like, oh, if you want to do more than 25 years, it takes more than an hour. There you go. Chronologically. So, yeah.
So, Kinda Neat's, you're on to the next thing now?
For the moment.
Third time's a charm?
Well, no. I look at everything that I will ever do as an extension of Kinda Neat. Like Kinda Neat is just me and my homie Ben, and so now the You Feel Me podcast is me interviewing people and my homie Ben doing the audio, like, so it's still the same thing realistically. Yeah. It's just under a new name because, they didn't want to like buy the name or anything. It's just, we want the title to fill into our branding. So that's why it's called You Feel Me, because it's like their whole thing is music you can feel.
I hear Lil B say that every time I hear it.
What, You Feel Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You feel me?
You feel me? So yeah, I'm sure that when I need it to, Kinda Neat will still be there for me and I'll be able to like upstart it again. And I just look at that as like the blanket name of whatever I'm doing because that's the company name. You know what I'm saying? So for the moment, there will not be any YouTube uploads or podcasts under the guise of Kinda Neat. But when that Batman signal gets called out and I need to do it again, I'll be able to,
Nice.
I'm just like a fucking surviving ass cockroach. Like I'll always figure out how to like get the next piece of crumbs, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
well, you killed it with that show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, so, it is a lot of work.
That's it. Thank you, man. I'm glad that you liked it.
Yep.
Yeah.
How about any hip hop stuff? You working on any music?
Yeah, here and there. I still write songs.
Yeah,
I'm sitting on songs. I mean, no, but I have access to studios or wherever. Like maybe I'll come use this crazy ass booth you got here at some point.
Totally.
But yeah, nah.
Spit some bars.
Yeah, I don't really like to be too specific with it because I don't like people bugging me like, when's music coming? But I don't think
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I don't think I'm done yet.
As soon as I talk about it, it's kind of deflates it.
Yeah, totally.
I like to keep it.
Well, there's a whole theory about that where it's like don't talk about your goals out loud because once you talk about them, you've made part of yourself believe that you're accomplishing them already, So if you have goals,
that is it, yeah.
Yeah,
that's part of
as soon as you speak it out loud, you already like if the people that say, "Oh, I'm gonna fucking write a book," they already feel like they accomplished something by putting that out in the world, but you haven't done shit because you haven't written any pages yet.
No
so
one's like guessing anymore at that point.
So it's like if you want to write a book, just like write the book and then put it out. Don't talk about it. So anyway,
man, thank you so much, dude. Thanks, I'm so glad.
I appreciate
it.
On. Yeah, thank you, man. I really like your spot, and I'm jealous of where you live. So
I had some bad spots before this one, so don't feel too.
Everybody has.
Jealous.
Everybody has. Yeah, just tag me. That's it.
You've been listening to the Cameron Adair podcast, made by me, Cameron Adair. Thanks to Lee, you can find Kinda Neat and his new show, You Feel Me, on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. This show is at podcast.cameronadair.com, where you can find links to everywhere it exists. If you enjoyed the show, check out the Patreon page or write a quick rating or review from your phone. We can't make the show without all of the support on there, and we really appreciate you guys. And as always, thanks for listening.